Hey, Keeping It Real listeners, I'm Alexander Garrett once again, and thanks for listening to this podcast, wherever it may be. And I think you might have heard earlier that I was talking about City and State New York. They're a great political journalism company. They cover downstate, upstate New York, as well as national news with a different perspective. But did you also know that City and State New York is home to the most powerful must-read list in New York City, and it's one that's been a long-standing institution in New York, by the way. It's called the Power 100. They have one for nearly every borough, and on August 7th, 2019, it will be right in the borough of Queens. That's right, the Power 100 list coming to the borough of Queens, and it'll coincide with the debut of the August 5th issue of City and State New York, their hard copy. So you don't want to miss it. And it's a great event. It's a place to connect with influential people in Queens, such as people that work in government, advocacy, academia, media, or business. The Queens Power 100 is a premier networking opportunity. So please join us in celebrating the people who are on this list, as well as seeing where they're ranked in the Power 100. For more information, go to cityandstateny.com. That's cityandstateny.com/events. And if you do live in Queens and want to come out to get a copy of City and State's Queens Power 100 Specialty Edition at the Bordone in Long Island City on August 7th, then go to the events page on cityandstatenewyork.com, cityandstateny.com, and use my promo code Keeping It Real for a 20% discount at checkout. cityandstateny.com/events. Find the Queens Power 100 for 2019 right there. Keeping It Real is the promo code, 20% discount at checkout. In one day, but today I am, because I wanted to get Mark Honeybell, the Air Force veteran, and he's doing this big bike tour cross country in honor of C.K. Shepard. You'll learn all about it in just a bit. But then I saw this news pop up on the New York Times, and yes, the New York Times, the failing New York Times. Well, they actually are producing a great article today that shows how the United States, its headline at the top, escalates online attack on Russia's power grid. Now, if you're upset about foreign interference with Russia, how can you not be happy? How can you not say, hey, we're actually doing something when you see a headline like that? David Sanger and Nicole Perleroth on the beat here for the New York Times saying the United States is stepping up digital incursions into Russia's electric power grid in a warning to Vladimir Putin and a demonstration. The New York Times is giving the Trump administration props here, by the way. Administration is using new authorities to deploy cyber tools more aggressively, both current and former government officials said. So for those who say, oh, he's kowtowing to Putin, he's doing this, and I agree, when he's in person with Putin, I think it could be tougher. But look at the behind the scenes. DOJ's found all these Russian nationals guilty, and then they charged Russian companies during the whole special counsel probe. And now we're stepping up the efforts. Over the past 3 months, these writers have done a big study and a big investigation into this. And so it's just great that we are deploying American computer code inside Russia's grid to, get at Russia and get back at Russia too, if you think about it. It was directed at Moscow's disinformation and hacking units around the 2018 midterm elections. So please, he may have said, I'll take foreign powers' dirt, which was a stupid comment. But do not discount what this president's doing for the country right now against Russia. And this story today by the New York Times, a mainstream paper, if you look at it, they are saying, hey, we are actually ramping up efforts against this power grid. And they say it's long overdue. Public warnings from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI issued this warning that, Russia was going to do this hacking, do this interference, do this influencing the election, or try to anyway. Not a vote was affected by it, but they did interfere with the Facebook ads and whatnot. So it's just great that we are taking a stand against Russia. And for those who are wondering if the Trump administration is doing something, well, yes, they are doing something against Iran. They're doing something against Russia. And it's time people started reporting this day in and day out. And then this other story today that I thought was very intriguing. These celebrities that say they're going to move out if Trump gets elected and this, that, and the other. Well, the Harris poll, combined with the Times, the Hill rather, has this interesting story out this week.
All right, we found that 65 Hollywood endorsements have no bearing on their vote. Almost a quarter say it makes them less likely to vote for that candidate, and just 11% say it makes them more likely. Though majorities of all parties said Hollywood endorsements have no bearing on how they vote, GOP voters were more inclined to say Hollywood endorsements make them less likely to vote for a candidate. Let's look at it by age. Younger voters were more likely than older voters to say a Hollywood endorsement makes them more likely to vote for a candidate, 23%. So does that mean celebrity endorsements have no impact? Our poll findings were similar to some others in that voters say they don't care about celebrity opinion. However, the academic research tells a different story. Several studies have shown celebrity endorsements can make people think candidates have more of a chance to win and can also help the candidates raise money. So what's going to happen in 2020? We'll have to wait and see. But I've never met a candidate who could get celebrity endorsements and turn them down.
Now, let's just hear the last part, the first part again, in case you missed it the first time.
All right, we found that 65% of voters say Hollywood endorsements have no bearing on their vote.
Boom, 65%. I mean, look, these people want to complain, scream, maybe impersonate Trump on Saturday Night Live, and then call for, attacks against him at the same time. But whatever they're saying, it seems like the general public is not really interested. Now, my generation, 18 to 35, they do care. And that's because these celebrities have a way of getting to us through social media, but it's best to tune them out sometimes. And then it just shows that no matter how much noise people like De Niro, people like Baldwin, people like Alyssa Milano want to get their voice out there, 65% are ignoring them, which is a really good stat in my eyes anyway. Then it brings this other point along. What does it mean when these candidates do perform for candidates like Hillary Clinton? These celebrities do perform for candidates like Hillary Clinton. My girlfriend and I were talking about this afternoon, and it's true. Maybe the fact that they're there doesn't mean they want to endorse the candidate. But I would say that for the most part, if you're there singing for a candidate, you're endorsing them. And when we saw what Philly did in Philly, Jay-Z, Beyonce going out for Hillary, that didn't have an effect because Hillary did not win the campaign, but she clearly tried to get the celebrity influence, but it didn't work for her. So, that being said, the big two stories as of right now, the celebrity stuff isn't a big story, but to me it is because all these celebrities want to complain and say that Trump's this, that, and the other, yet who's really listening to them on the whole? And that's basically the point of the Hill's most recent polling of Americans, just a year and a few months away from November 2020. It's going to be fun. 20 candidates on the DNC debate stage, 10 one night, 10 on the other. De Blasio's there. We've been talking about it all week. I don't know why. I just wish he'd skip it and focus on his city, but he doesn't listen to the right most times, so I wouldn't expect him to do any less than be at that debate a month or within this month. So, that being said, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to welcome Mark Honeybell, Captain Mark Honeybell, to talk about his journey that's starting on July the 4th. We'll be right back on Keeping It Real with Alex Garrett. Alex G in NYC is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Hey, Keeping It Real listeners, I'm Alexander once again, and thanks for listening to this podcast, wherever it may be. And I think you might have heard earlier that I was talking about City and State New York. They're a great political journalism company. They cover downstate, upstate New York, as well as national news with a different perspective. But did you also know that City and State New York is home to the most powerful must-read list in New York City, and it's one that's been a long-standing institution in New York, by the way. It's called the Power 100. They have one for nearly every borough, and on August 7th, 2019, it will be right in the borough of Queens. That's right, the Power 100 list coming to the borough of Queens, and it'll coincide with the debut of the August 5th issue of City and State New York, their hard copy. So you don't want to miss it. And it's a great event. It's a place to connect with influential people in Queens, such as people that work in government, advocacy, academia, media, or business. The Queens Power 100 is a premier networking opportunity. So please join us in celebrating the people who are on this list, as well as seeing where they're ranked in the Power 100. For more information, go to cityandstateny.com. That's cityandstateny.com/events. And if you do live in Queens and want to come out to get a copy of City and State's Queens Power 100 Specialty Edition at the Bordone in Long Island City on August 7th, then go to the events page on cityandstatenewyork.com, cityandstateny.com, and use my promo code Keeping It Real for a 20% discount at checkout. cityandstateny.com/events. Find the Queens Power 100 for 2019 right there. Keeping It Real is the promo code, 20% discount at checkout. Well, this is a nice little Saturday change of pace, not political, not cultural or heavy topics, just some fun, because life, you got to have fun. And that is what my next guest, who's coming back to Keeping It Real with Alexander Garrett, is having, as he's about to do a big endeavor. And Captain Mark Honeybell, welcome back to Keeping It Real with Alexander Garrett. Tell me what this endeavor is, and for those who are listening for the first time.
Well, I've got a 1919 Henderson four-cylinder motorcycle that I've fully restored, and I'm embarking on the 4th of July on a cross-country trip in tribute to a World War I veteran who came over here from England after the war and took his trip in a 1919 Henderson across the country and went back home to England and wrote a book about it. So I've researched his book, and I'm retracing his route. And in addition, through the process of that, I found a lot of details that I thought would be very interesting to people. So I created a fully annotated book of his original book, C.K. Shepard's original book.
And so that's actually That's right, because that's complementing the release that just happened. How does it feel to have it out in the public and released and finally published?
Oh, it's been a long road. You know, people say, "Oh, you can just self-publish and you can do all this stuff." It is a big production. So yes, I'm very relieved and excited. I've been in touch with the publisher, and the ebook version, which I previewed, is also about to become available. So that'll be a nice way, and it really truly is nice, because the ebook version will have all the hyperlinks, so you don't have to stop reading. You just tap on the link, read the note, go back to the book, and so it's really nice. But the book, when I got it, it's almost like a small phone book. It's larger than a normal paperback, 7 by 10, and I'm very proud of it. 450 pages plus.
Well, that's awesome, and that's a lot of documenting. Now, when we last talked, you said you were going to take off July 3rd from Herald Square in the morning about 8 a.m. to Coney Island. Has any of these plans changed since we last talked?
It does look a little bit. I was just talking to my publicist about this. She wants to play a little bit of close hold with some of this information, but it looks like we're going to try to have a reception over in Brooklyn, over on the Williamsburg near the Williamsburg Bridge in Brooklyn. And so we're waiting to find out about the details on that. If that happens, will be coming back from Coney Island to that reception in the afternoon and evening and having a bit of a party and book signing and things like that over there. And if we do that, we probably will leave a little bit later in the day. Instead of 8, maybe we'll leave at 10, something like that, so that we don't end up getting it over at this venue too early before they're really ready for us.
And would it be free to public, or how would people? Obviously, when it's finalized, we can talk about it more. But how would people be able to join you for that?
Well, I'm going to create a Facebook. As soon as I get the details of it, I'll create a Facebook event, and you can find out on the website, the Facebook page, AcrossAmericaByMotorcycle.com, and that has the links to the Facebook page, and right there it'll have the events. You can check out the events. I'll be mentioning it in the newsletter once we get the details finalized.
And, yesterday was Flag Day, and this feels like a very American thing to do. Even though he's British, it feels like an American thing to do, going cross-country. And you must be really excited about that on July the 4th to honor the country in this way.
I am. I've just ordered our shirts for the shop shirts for the team, and we've got the American flag right there on our left arm. And
so talk about the newsletter, because we didn't get into that the last time. We were more focused on the trip, but you do have a newsletter that comes out every week or so. Why should people sign up for that? What is it about that makes that stand out in addition to the trip?
Well, it's the way that I can communicate with a lot of people about a wide variety of issues. I've played with different formats, and I do find that single-topic newsletters do seem to work better because it allows people to focus on one subject. However, things are starting to back up, and so I'm right now have been writing the next newsletter, which I hope to get it out first thing tomorrow morning, and that way people can have all the details in one place about what's been going on, what's been happening, and how they can get involved.
And I'm sure you're expecting a lot of people on the route, and it sounds like even that planning has changed a little bit. Like maybe you'll have some more receptions as you go along through KC, through the desert in Arizona, and so forth.
That's right. And I have not, I've been focusing primarily on the eastern seaboard because that's the stuff that's closest. But I have the strong sense that once this thing takes off, and the people further west hear about it, they're going to want to be involved in some way, and they'll want to host an event at their museum or their restaurant or whatever is the right fit for them. So I'm putting the word out that if folks, the readers, the listeners know of a place that they would like, that they think that it would be a good fit for us to stop at, by all means, contact us. Let us know. Say, this would be a good fit. I did get such a contact from somebody down in Maryland. Thinks it's a great fit for a museum that's opening up down there.
Oh, wow.
Historic museum about the trolleys.
And, by the way, you're going to hit D.C. as soon as you leave here, and that's going to be an exciting trip in and of itself because of the way D.C. is now. But also, it's July 4th week. What a perfect way to kick it off through D.C.
Right. Well, I'll be actually going through Washington, D.C. on Sunday morning, the 7th of July, and frankly, that works for me. It's a very busy city, lots of traffic, and not going through there during a weekday is probably best for me. It looks like we're going to stop in College Park, Maryland, which is just northeast of D.C., and that'll be our night stop. And then the next day we go all the way through D.C. and up to Mount Airy, Maryland, and then over toward Cumberland, Maryland, where we'll spend our night there. But that'll be on the 7th of July on Sundays. Saturday, we're going to be doing Philadelphia down to College Park. And
hey, you know what? Maybe while you're down there, tap the Terrapin for good luck. I mean, that is University of Maryland territory.
There you go. Well, I like I said, we'll be staying in College Park. I've got to figure out exactly the hotel. I picked it out. I just got to give them a call. It doesn't seem like there's a real booking issue. I was primarily concerned with some of the holiday bookings in Toms River. I've got that all booked, so we're all set with that. Going to go down to Toms River and pick up. I've had the trailer arranged to have my trailer wrapped with artwork for the trip, the support trailer. So you'll see us coming.
And keeping it real, listeners, Mark said to this a great idea. I'll update you wherever Mark is. I'll tell you where he is because it's going to be a fun adventure to follow all summer long. I would think so. Anyway, now you have a military background, right? You were in the Air Force, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I did. I was got in the Air Force around 1981, and got out in officially 1989. But my last day of active duty before leave was in December 1988. And so, yeah, I was a pilot in the Air Force. I flew C-130s.
And so your military background, would you say that inspired this whole journey as well?
Well, it certainly contributes to it. You have a great deal of respect for people that serve, and whether they're from the United States or any other country. Certainly, World War I was a world war, and everybody was pulling together for a common objective there. So it is pretty heartening, and we don't used to say it anymore. People used to didn't much say anything, but when somebody finds out you're a veteran now, they always say thank you for your service, and that's fairly new, and it feels nice when people say that. It's a small thing, I think, but it is nice.
Well, and I tell you, I was talking about this on Memorial Day weekend. I feel like we could, or even D-Day anniversary, I feel like we could do more for the veterans. And since sometimes the federal level doesn't do it, I think we, the people, could support our veterans even more so than we do right now. But that's a different story for a different day. So Mr. Shepard did this thing in the midst of the war in 1919. Is that right?
Actually, the war was over. The armistice was in, the 11th day, the 11th month, the 11th hour in 1918, and 6 months later, of course, he was planning and leaving Liverpool to come over to Montreal and come down to New York and head out. So it was over for about a little over 6 months, and then he had gotten out of the Royal Air Force and came over to do this.
And so, and I'm sure a trip like that back then meant so much to everybody. I mean, it seems like it was one of the first of its kind in 1919.
There were people crossing the country by motorcycle, and it was definitely not a normal tourist kind of thing to do. Even touring by car back then was something that was unusual. They were trying to promote good roads and travel by road and things like that for vacation, recreational purposes, but it really was not really very good because the roads were so poor. So there was a huge good roads movement that started the early teens and went all the way into the late 20s to try to improve the roads. C.K. Shepard encountered 95% dirt roads outside of cities, and some impassable.
And so how do you plan on doing that here in 2019? I mean, the roads are still not as good in some places, so I'm sure that'll be a bit of a challenge.
Well, I have two issues. One is I am trying to retrace the route that he did. And so some of the roads that I've looked at are not there anymore. Some of the roads go up to the edge of a river where a bridge used to be, and the bridge is gone. Some of the roads are just paved over, and now they're interstate highways. So my objective is to ride as close to the route that he traveled on roads that make sense for the bike that I have, which is avoiding the interstate at all costs if I can. And that means secondary roads. That means out in the country. And yes, it in fact does mean quite a few dirt roads. I've driven the entire route in a car, and there's quite a bit of dirt road driving and just about 30 or 40 miles of truly off-road trail riding.
Well, that just off-roading sounds a lot of fun in general. Now you have more of a purpose than just to do it for free. You're on a mission to do exactly what CK did. And D-Day obviously just happened, and I feel like what a nice way to add to that 75 years by this trip. I mean, maybe there's no correlation, but I feel like there's a bit of a tie and a bit of a similarity considering 75 years later. We're honoring that day.
Well, C.K. Shepard, it's not well known, but later in life, he actually worked for the Ministry of Aircraft Production in World War II as a civilian. And he advised them about how to increase production in factories to produce more war goods so that they could fight better. And it was really, when it comes right down to it, rather almost a propaganda method to exhort people to produce more. So he was contributing to that war effort even later in his life in World War II.
And thankfully, you didn't have much of a wartime, or did you get into combat while you were in the service?
I did not. I was always at risk to be called, but I did not. Right after I separated, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And at that point, a lot of friends I knew, they were not able to separate. So I was actually out, and I was working for the airline by that time. But a lot of people, stepped up and served then, and subsequent to that, and certainly after 9/11.
Right, and now you were in the air for most of your time there in the 80s. What's it like doing something for the ground game for the biking? It seems like it's a big change.
Well, it's a lot slower, that's for sure, and you get a much better appreciation for just how not flat things are when you actually get on the ground. While you're flying over things, they all look pretty flat and easy. But when you get on the ground and you say, no, I'm going to drive over here, now you find out, well, there's a big hill there I didn't see. So it's more than just picking points on the maps and finding out where you can go. There's actually challenges and landscape issues and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that. I have flown over some of these places that I'll be riding on, and that's always been kind of neat. But I think that the challenge is going to be the slow speed that things happen, slowly unfold. And frankly, I'm not in a hurry. So my whole purpose is to see America, see Americans, and experience that in the best way that I can, in tribute to C.K. Shepard, but also as a personal journey as well for myself.
Well, tell you what, if you have interviews, are you going to do interviews with these Americans that you see throughout the journey? I hope you do.
I am going to do that. I don't know if I'm going to record them. It may be that radio stations along the way have a little round table or something like that. That'd be wonderful to try something like that, so we could have a little bit of a conversation with people. But I am totally open and flexible. And as I've said, I'm going to be all mic'd up. And if opportunities present ourselves, I'll be able to talk to you driving down the highway.
Sure, and even so,
let you know.
And send us interviews along with that you do with these different people you look forward to meeting. That'll be fun too, because I feel like that's also missing in America. The whole on the ground, talking to actual people. We just hear what our TV screens want us to hear, and that's not the end all be all. And I feel like going on the ground, talking to Americans, is the answer.
It is true. You have a perception of how people are in certain places, but I think that in the end, more people are more the same than they are different. And so when you actually get face to face with them, all of the labels and things like that, they tend to disappear. And now you're talking to them in real terms about things that matter to them and about their lives and things like that. And so I recently wrote a piece about that for somebody, and they asked what I thought the most nice, the thing I'm really looking forward to the most is I wrote was talking to people and having them tell me about the places I was going through and what they knew about them and their experience.
Well, that's got to be fun. And how was the results? What did you find out?
Well, so far I haven't left yet, but that's my plan. My plan is to enjoy, those kinds of visits and not shirk from talking to somebody at the gas station who is curious about this and wants to bend my ear about what they know. I think that's exciting. That's what America is. I want to see it. I want to hear it. I want to live it.
It's such a filmable event too, because you get to, if you video yourself talking to these people, that would be really awesome as well. Well, Mark Honeybell, really quickly, where can people find out more about this? What's your Twitter? What's your Facebook? What's your YouTube even?
The YouTube is hard to find because it's got such a long URL, but you can find all of it. The social media and everything on the website. It's AcrossAmericaByMotorcycle.com. And that, I actually have another one, a shorter one, but it's just a bunch of letters, and I think this is easier because it's just AcrossAmericaByMotorcycle.com. And you can go there, and they'll have the Facebook links. They have the Twitter links, which I have not used. I'm going to use it more when I'm writing because it's a lot easier to do. It's a short update. But right now, it's kind of inactive. Once I get going, it's going to take off.
Well, we will be hopefully
Facebook.
taking off with you on July the 3rd, and then hopefully I get up early in the morning to ride out with you July the 4th to see you start off your journey, and then we will document this every step of the way. And one final thing, what do you want people to get out of the preparation? Like, what's your message going into this?
My message before the event is to take an opportunity to look at something with a new lens, to try to experience, to try to envision how things really were only 100 years ago. I mean, the country was barely 100 years old 100 years ago, and there were no interstates and things like that. But you don't really understand that until you read something like this and really contemplate what the words are saying and what they really mean. Because if you just kind of read the words on the page, you think about everything in the context of your life and your world and what things matter to you. Now you can go here to there and it'll take you 15 minutes. Back then it'd take you all day.
And that's something?
So that's the kind of stuff that I think that people don't really appreciate very much. Not that they have to, but I think that it makes me smile when I read stuff like that. It makes me smile.
Now, one thing that came to mind before we sign off here, do you still fly or did you stop flying altogether?
Nope, I'm not flying at all. I am done. I'll probably end up flying. I don't know. I'll fly at some point here, but no, I'm not flying. I'm certainly not flying professionally.
All right. Well, I just thought I'd ask because I know that was your passion for a long time, and I didn't know if you were still at it after the airlines era.
Yeah,
but
I know people that have that. I have a dream of an idea, but my wife assures me that I'm not going to be allowed to do that, and so I don't know that I'll think about it any longer. But it's the idea of it. Back in the 1920s, Heathkit, the company that made, I think his name was Roy Heath, built airplanes, and in the airplanes he put Henderson motorcycle engines, and so I thought it'd be kind of fun to build and get one of those Heath airplanes and put a Henderson motorcycle and fly it, but that borders on I don't know, irresponsible maybe. I don't know. Especially as I'm getting older, I'm not sure if I need to be doing that.
Well, you're still taking an adventure on the ground, and that's going to be very exciting. Mark Honeybell,
Yep.
Captain, thanks for joining me once again, and we will not lose touch. We'll have you back day of, most likely, on July 3rd, and I know people, if they want to go to the Herald Square launch, they can join you. Is that right?
I can tell you, right. I can tell you, I just booked it today, the Hotel Martinique. Right there on, I think it's 34th Street, or maybe it's 32nd Street. Right there off of, right just south of Herald Square. It's 1 block away from the McAlpin Hotel, which is Herald Towers, where C.K. Shepard stayed.
Well, how about that? Almost to the block, ladies and gentlemen. Captain,
yeah, very close.
Captain Mark Honeybell, thanks for joining me, and we'll definitely have you back.
Take care.
Have a great weekend, and happy Father's Day as well.
Oh, yeah. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Take care. I'm Alexander Garrett. More with Captain Honeybell in the near future, but for now, keeping it real, and stay tuned with me for other episodes down the road. Thanks for joining me today.